Darkness. Complete and absolute darkness surrounded Wang Yu. He couldn't see the ground beneath his feet. He couldn't see the sky above him. He couldn't even make out the shape of his own hand in front of his face. For a moment, Wang Yu simply stood there, listening. There was no city noise, no traffic, no voices, nothing. Only the cold wilderness and an endless black night. Wang Yu lowered his gaze toward his left wrist. A strange wristband was wrapped around it. He reached over and activated the device. Almost immediately, a translucent holographic screen appeared in front of him, casting a faint glow across his face. Before entering the game, the wristband had only displayed his personal panel. Now, however, there was something new. The game channel. Wang Yu opened it. 3 options appeared before him: public channel, private channel, and game task. Instead of checking what the other players were saying, Wang Yu immediately selected game task. There was no point talking to anyone until he understood exactly what kind of situation he was in. The information appeared. His game was called Polar Night Wilderness Survival. Difficulty level: 1 star. Game mode: open-ended. Wang Yu's expression grew serious as he continued reading. He and the other participants had been randomly transported into a wilderness region that had just entered its polar night period. Their objective was simple: survive until the polar night ended. Those who successfully survived would receive rewards from the game. For every 7 days a player remained alive, they would also earn a survival gift package. However, those gift packages would only be distributed after the game had ended. Wang Yu continued reading. The game would provide no regular supplies. Food would have to be found. Water would have to be collected. Materials would have to be gathered. Shelter would have to be built. And the wilderness was far from empty. Predators lived throughout the region. Worse, as the polar night continued, those predators would gradually become more aggressive. Extreme weather and natural disasters could also occur. The system strongly recommended that every player establish a secure shelter as quickly as possible. Then came another warning. Once the game officially began, there was no option to simply quit. A player could leave only by surviving until the end, or by dying. Wang Yu stared silently at the words. This was supposed to be a 1-star survival game, yet even the lowest difficulty already sounded deadly. Fortunately, there was one advantage. Every player received a 7-day novice protection period. Those first 7 days were their opportunity to gather resources, establish shelter, and prepare for whatever would come afterward. The system would also provide occasional survival prompts along the way. Wang Yu closed the information panel. A few days earlier, none of this had existed. Blue Star had been completely normal. Then everything changed. Almost overnight, strange wristbands appeared on the wrists of people across the entire planet. No one knew where they came from. No one knew who had created them. And no one could remove them. When activated, every wristband displayed a personal panel. Wang Yu's showed his basic information. His name was Wang Yu. He was 24 years old. His strength was 0.9, his agility was 0.8, and his spirit was 1.2. The average adult had a score of 1.0. That meant Wang Yu was slightly weaker and slower than average physically, but his spirit was noticeably higher. There was something else inside the wristband, a game invitation card. Every person received exactly one. Using the invitation transported that person into a randomly selected survival game. At first, many people were hesitant. No one understood what these games were. Then someone successfully returned, and everything changed. One of the first successful players received an unbelievable reward: the ability to fly. Videos spread across the internet showing the person rising into the air without wires, machines, or any other assistance. It wasn't a trick. The supernatural ability was real. The survival games could grant powers that continued working after a player returned to Blue Star. The entire world went crazy. Millions of people began using their invitation cards. Some dreamed of gaining supernatural abilities. Others wanted wealth. Some simply wanted to know what waited on the other side. But reality quickly crushed their excitement. The survival games were dangerous, extremely dangerous. Even games rated at only 1 star had terrible success rates. Many people entered hoping to become extraordinary, and returned with almost nothing. Others never returned at all. Because every person initially received only 1 invitation card, those cards soon became incredibly valuable. Companies began purchasing unused invitations. The price climbed rapidly. Within only a few days, a single invitation card could sell for hundreds of thousands. For some people, selling the card was the obvious choice. Take the money, avoid the danger, and walk away. Wang Yu chose differently. He refused to sell his invitation, but he also refused to rush into a game blindly. While countless people activated their cards immediately, Wang Yu waited. He researched. He studied the experiences of surviving players. He read discussions. He examined survival strategies. He gathered every piece of information he could find. He only had 1 invitation, and he didn't intend to waste it. During his research, Wang Yu discovered several important things. First, players couldn't choose their game. The destination was random. One person might enter a frozen wilderness. Another might find themselves on an island. Another could face an entirely different survival environment. Second, time inside the game worlds didn't seem to move at the same speed as time on Blue Star. A person could spend a very long period inside a survival game, while only 1 or 2 days passed in the real world. But perhaps the most important discovery was this. The games weren't virtual reality. Players weren't controlling digital characters. Their actual bodies were transported. And from everything survivors had discovered so far, the places they visited appeared to be real worlds. After several days of research, Wang Yu finally made his decision. He activated his invitation card. And now, he was here. Standing alone in an unknown wilderness, surrounded by endless darkness. Polar night. Wang Yu looked around again. He still couldn't see anything beyond the faint light produced by his holographic screen. That created an immediate problem. He needed equipment. As if responding to his thoughts, another notification suddenly appeared. Before beginning his survival challenge, every player would be allowed to select 5 survival tools. Only 5. A massive equipment menu unfolded across the holographic display. Wang Yu's eyes moved across the choices. A fire starter, a spear, a hammock, a hacksaw, a fishing rod, glow sticks, a camping pot, an axe, a sleeping bag, a compass, a bucket, a hammer, a military knife, animal traps, a water bottle, a fishing net, a torch, a military shovel, a crossbow, a tarpaulin, a lantern, a flashlight, a tent, climbing rope, a first aid kit, and many more. There were dozens of possibilities. Weapons, tools, shelter, light, medical equipment. Each one could potentially determine whether he lived or died. But Wang Yu could only choose 5. The holographic screen floated before him, immunating his face against the endless black wilderness. His eyes narrowed. His first real decision in the survival game had arrived. Choose 5 survival tools.
Rows of survival equipment filled the glowing screen in front of Wang Yu. Seeing them, he finally breathed a small sigh of relief. At least the game wasn't expecting him to survive completely empty-handed. But just as Wang Yu prepared to examine the available tools, he suddenly felt something strange. His attention shifted toward his right hand. The darkness was too deep for him to see it clearly, but he could feel it. That item had entered the survival game with him. Wang Yu's excitement immediately grew. If he could use that item here, Surviving this game might be much easier than he originally thought. Suppressing his excitement for the moment, Wang Yu turned his attention back to the glowing screen. There were dozens of tools available. A fire starter, spear, hammock, small hacksaw, fishing rod, glow sticks, camping pot, axe, sleeping bag, compass, tin bucket, hammer, military knife, animal traps, water bottle, fishing net, torch, military shovel, crossbow, tarp, lantern, flashlight, tent, climbing rope, first aid kit, and even more. Unfortunately, Wang Yu could only choose 5. He began examining the descriptions carefully. Some tools included additional supplies. The fishing rod came with bait. The hammer came with a chisel. The crossbow included 3 arrows. Choosing the animal traps would give him 3 traps. The climbing rope was 9 meters long. Every item had its own advantages, but with only 5 choices, Wang Yu couldn't afford to waste a single one. Before deciding, he opened the game mission again and reread the information about polar night wilderness survival. Then he made his first choice: the fire starter. It could be used 100 times and came with a scraper. For Wang Yu, this choice required almost no thought. Fire was essential in wilderness survival. A reliable fire source could provide warmth, help cook food, boil water, and possibly protect him from animals. The fire starter was also much more dependable than ordinary matches. It could survive moisture, continue working after being dried, and create extremely hot sparks even under difficult outdoor conditions. In a wilderness survival game, it was simply too valuable to ignore. His first selection was confirmed. For his second tool, Wang Yu needed light. This world was experiencing polar night. Without some way to see through the darkness, even simple tasks could become dangerous. His choices included glow sticks, a torch, a lantern, and a flashlight. Each option could provide roughly 3 hours of total light. The glow sticks came in a set of 3, but once activated, each one would continue glowing for an entire hour, whether Wang Yu needed it or not. That immediately made them less useful. The flashlight was convenient. He could turn it on and off whenever necessary, and point the beam exactly where he wanted. The torch had another advantage. Fire could potentially frighten wild animals. But eventually the torch would burn away, and once the flashlight battery died, there probably wouldn't be anywhere in the wilderness to recharge it. That left the lantern. Its initial kerosene supply would only last a few hours, but unlike the other choices, the lantern could potentially be reused. If Wang Yu found more fuel, he could keep it functioning. It would also perform better against wind and bad weather. Thinking about long-term survival rather than immediate convenience, Wang Yu selected the lantern. 2 choices remained. Confirmed. Fire. Light. Next came food. Wang Yu needed some way to hunt. The available options included a fishing rod, fishing net, crossbow, and animal traps. Fishing immediately presented a problem. Wang Yu wasn't an experienced fisherman. Even if he knew how to use the equipment, there was no guarantee he would find a river or lake nearby. Choosing fishing equipment without knowing the terrain would be a gamble. The crossbow was normally the obvious choice. It was easily the strongest hunting weapon available. But this wasn't normal wilderness survival. It was polar night. He couldn't shoot prey he couldn't see. That left the animal traps. Their success would depend partly on luck, but they could continue working even while Wang Yu was somewhere else. He selected them as his third tool. For the fourth choice, Wang Yu wanted versatility. He chose the military shovel. It could dig soil, cut through smaller pieces of wood, help construct a shelter, and even serve as a weapon if something attacked him. Other tools, such as the axe, knife, hammer, and hacksaw, were useful, but none offered the same combination of functions. 4 selections were complete. The 5th was much harder. Wang Yu considered taking a hammock, or a sleeping bag, maybe a tent. The tarp was especially tempting,
because it could make building a shelter significantly easier. But then he thought again about the mysterious item in his right hand. If that item's ability worked inside the survival game, building a shelter might not be nearly as difficult as it would be for an ordinary player. That meant he didn't need to spend his final selection on shelter equipment. Instead, Wang Yu chose the tin bucket. It looked simple compared to the other equipment, but a metal bucket could serve countless purposes in the wilderness. It could carry water, store materials, hold food, and potentially be used for tasks Wang Yu hadn't even considered yet. The choice was made. Several useful items had to be abandoned. The first aid kit, camping pot, compass, water bottle, tent, and many others. Wang Yu couldn't have everything. He could only hope that the 5 tools he'd chosen would be enough. Fire starter, lantern, animal traps, military shovel, tin bucket. Wang Yu pressed confirm. The moment he did, the darkness around him changed. 5 objects appeared on the ground. His survival equipment had arrived. And now, his real challenge in the polar night wilderness was about to begin.
Wang Yu looked at the lantern glowing on the ground. Its light finally allowed him to see his surroundings and the other survival tools lying nearby. A message appeared on the holographic screen. Lantern. Remaining fuel, 180 minutes. The ordinary kerosene lantern could illuminate an area roughly 10 meters around him, but its fuel supply would only last for 3 hours. 3 hours. Wang Yu immediately felt the pressure. This wilderness was completely covered in darkness. If his lantern ran out before he found another reliable source of light, he would be trapped in the wilderness, unable to see anything. Just then, another notification appeared. Ding! Player has completed the selection of survival tools. The exclusive item for this survival game will now be issued. Wang Yu's eyes lit up. He already had a good idea of what was coming. Another message appeared. Ding! Exclusive game item acquired. Backpack. Please claim your item. Wang Yu became excited. Finally! He immediately claimed it. Before entering the survival game, Wang Yu had read information online about other players' experiences. Many survival games provided players with a special backpack when they entered. But this wasn't an ordinary backpack. It was spatial storage. After Wang Yu claimed it, a new icon appeared on his holographic interface. Previously, the screen contained only his personal panel and game channel. Now there were 3 options: personal panel, backpack, game channel. Wang Yu opened the backpack. A large storage grid appeared before him. The available space was 1 cubic meter. 1 meter long, 1 meter wide, 1 meter high. Wang Yu stared at it curiously. He picked up his military shovel. Then he focused on the backpack and thought about placing the shovel inside. The shovel immediately disappeared from his hand. At the same time, its image appeared inside the storage grid. Wang Yu's eyes widened. Amazing. He tried taking it back out. The military shovel instantly appeared in his hand again. This was incredibly convenient. For a moment, Wang Yu imagined how valuable something like this would be in the real world. If he could take the spatial backpack outside of the survival game, it would be worth a fortune. Unfortunately, it was an exclusive game item. It could only exist inside the survival game. Wang Yu placed the shovel back inside. Then he picked up his fire starter. It could only be used 100 times, so he would need to conserve it carefully. He stored that inside the backpack as well. Next went the animal traps. Then the tin bucket. Finally, Wang Yu picked up the lantern. But instead of immediately storing it, he looked at his right hand. Under the lantern's light, a faint image could finally be seen in the center of his palm. A dice. It wasn't a tattoo. It was Wang Yu's greatest secret. Before everything changed, Wang Yu had been an ordinary person. Aside from considering himself somewhat handsome, there wasn't anything particularly special about him. Then, several months earlier, something unbelievable happened. Wang Yu obtained a mysterious dice. Before he understood what it was, the dice suddenly entered his hand and disappeared. A dice-shaped pattern appeared on his palm afterward. At first, Wang Yu had been terrified. But after experimenting with it, he discovered that he could summon the dice whenever he wanted.
More importantly, the dice possessed an extraordinary ability. It could increase the quantity of items. Wang Yu could choose an object and roll the dice. Whatever number appeared determined how many additional copies of that object would be created. The dice had 6 sides, 1 through 6. That meant every roll could create anywhere from 1 to 6 additional items. Once Wang Yu discovered this ability, his ordinary life changed. He realized he could use it to make money. He would purchase expensive new products, including recently released smartphones. Then he would use the dice to create additional copies. Afterward, he could sell the extra products. A single phone could bring him thousands of yuan. For the first time, Wang Yu felt like he had discovered an easy path toward wealth. His business was going well. He had even begun saving money toward buying a luxury car and expanding what he was doing. Then the survival games appeared on Blue Star. Everything changed.
After learning about the survival games, Wang Yu had actually considered entering one voluntarily. His original idea was simple. Enter the game, find valuable items, bring those items back to the real world, then use the dice to multiply them. But something even better had happened. The dice itself had entered the survival game with him. Now Wang Yu needed to know one thing. Would its ability still work here? He summoned it. An egg-sized dice appeared above his right palm. Its 6 surfaces looked like white jade. Golden dots decorated each side. Wang Yu stared at it excitedly. The dice had successfully entered the game, but that didn't necessarily mean its ability would work. There was only one way to find out. He needed to test it. Wang Yu currently possessed 5 survival tools: a lantern, a fire starter, animal traps, a military shovel, and a tin bucket. Which one should he multiply? The answer was obvious. Light was currently his most urgent problem. His lantern contained only 3 hours of fuel, so Wang Yu decided to test the dice on it. He held the lantern in his left hand, then he focused. Increase the quantity of this lantern. Immediately, Wang Yu felt something happen. The lantern had been locked onto by the dice. That was the first requirement. If the dice couldn't lock onto an object, its quantity couldn't be increased. But this time, it worked. Wang Yu threw the dice. Instead of falling to the ground, it floated into the air. Then it began spinning rapidly. Wang Yu watched nervously. He had rolled this dice countless times during the previous several months, but no roll had ever mattered as much as this one. If the dice worked inside the survival game, his chances of surviving would increase dramatically. The dice slowed, then stopped. Wang Yu stared at the result. 3. He had rolled 3. Immediately, 3 glowing images of lanterns appeared around the dice. Wang Yu's excitement exploded. It worked! With a thought, the 3 lanterns materialized on the ground. There were now 4 lanterns burning around him. The surrounding wilderness became significantly brighter. Wang Yu couldn't help laughing. This changed everything. If he could multiply supplies inside the survival game, surviving would become far easier than it was for ordinary players. But the dice wasn't unlimited. After the roll, the golden dots across its 6 sides became dim. Wang Yu already understood what that meant. The dice needed time to recover. 1 golden dot would recover every hour. After 6 hours, the dice would be fully restored and he could use its ability again. There were other restrictions as well. Most importantly, an item that had already been multiplied could not be multiplied again. And copies created by the dice couldn't be used as targets either. That meant Wang Yu couldn't multiply 1 lantern into several, then take one of those copies and multiply it again endlessly. The original lantern and the 3 newly created lanterns were now unavailable for future multiplication. Still, that didn't matter. The ability was already incredibly powerful. Wang Yu quickly extinguished the 3 additional lanterns. There was no reason to waste their fuel. He now possessed 4 lanterns. Each could burn for approximately 3 hours. That gave him roughly 12 hours of light. But even 12 hours wasn't enough. This was polar night. There was no sunrise coming to save him. Once his lantern fuel disappeared, darkness would return. Wang Yu needed another source of light, and there was an obvious solution: firewood. He needed to find a large amount of wood as quickly as possible. With enough wood, he could build a fire and preserve the limited kerosene in his lanterns. Wang Yu gathered his equipment. His next objective was clear:
find wood, and establish a reliable source of fire before his artificial light
Wang Yu
disappeared.
placed the 3 lanterns into his new backpack. Now that his supplies were safely stored, he finally had a chance to examine the wilderness around him. The lantern illuminated only a small area. Within that faint circle of light, Wang Yu could see barren ground covered with exposed dirt and scattered gravel. Farther away, several low bushes disappeared into the darkness. But beyond the lantern's reach, there was nothing. Only blackness. Wang Yu had no idea which direction he should take. With no landmarks and no way to see what lay ahead, choosing a path was little more than guessing. So he picked a direction and started walking. The lantern illuminated roughly 10 meters around him. Even with the light, walking alone through such an enormous dark wilderness was unsettling. Wang Yu reached into his backpack and removed his military shovel. It wasn't particularly large. The shovel head was only slightly bigger than his palm, attached to a short wooden handle. But the weight of it in his hand made him feel safer. If something attacked him from the darkness, at least he wouldn't be completely defenseless. Wang Yu continued forward. He knew he couldn't waste time. The kerosene inside his lantern was limited, and every minute he spent wandering meant less light later. Fortunately, the terrain wasn't difficult. The ground was mostly flat, with large areas free of thick vegetation. That allowed him to move without forcing his way through dense bushes. As he continued, Wang Yu began seeing small trees. That was encouraging. Wood clearly wasn't rare in this wilderness. If necessary, he should be able to gather enough to make a fire. Wang Yu remained cautious. In an unfamiliar wilderness, venomous snakes and predators were some of the greatest dangers. He deliberately avoided thick vegetation whenever possible. If he stayed in open areas, he would have a better chance of noticing danger before it reached him. The game's warning remained fresh in his mind. There were many predators in this world, and as the polar night progressed, those animals would become increasingly aggressive. For now, however, Wang Yu believed the lantern might discourage most animals from approaching him. After walking for more than 10 minutes, he reached an area containing more trees. There, he noticed several broken branches lying on the ground. Some were completely dry. Perfect firewood. Wang Yu immediately began collecting them. Using the military shovel, he chopped the larger branches into manageable sections and arranged them into a pile. Then he gathered dry grass and placed it underneath. Instead of using his limited fire starter, Wang Yu carefully removed the glass cover from his lantern. He took some dry grass and touched it to the lantern's flame. The grass ignited. He quickly placed it beneath the branches. Moments later, a bonfire came to life. Warm light pushed back the surrounding darkness. For the first time since arriving in the wilderness, Wang Yu felt some of the tension leave his body. He added more branches. The flames grew stronger. Finding dry firewood was an enormous relief. If the lantern's kerosene ran out before he discovered another reliable source of light, wandering through this world would become incredibly dangerous. Now he had another option. Wang Yu extinguished the lantern. There was no reason to waste kerosene while the bonfire provided enough light. Every minute of lantern fuel was precious. Using the fire as his temporary base, Wang Yu searched the nearby area and collected additional dry branches. Several large limbs had already fallen from the surrounding trees. He chopped them into shorter sections with the military shovel and tied them together. He also gathered more dry grass to use as kindling later. With his immediate supply of firewood secured, Wang Yu began considering his next objective. Wood wasn't going to be his biggest problem. He could gather large amounts of it once he established a permanent location. But storing firewood meant he needed somewhere to settle. He needed a shelter. And choosing the location of that shelter was extremely important. Wang Yu couldn't simply build wherever he happened to stop. A shelter needed access to water. No matter how many tools or supplies he collected, he couldn't survive without drinking water. That made his next priority obvious. Find a water source. Before continuing his search,
Wang Yu decided to explore the remaining functions of his wristband. He opened the game channel. 3 options appeared: public channel, private channel, game task. He had already examined the game task. Now he selected the public channel. 2 new options appeared: chat channel, trading channel. Wang Yu opened the chat channel. Messages immediately began racing across the holographic screen. Then he noticed something surprising. The channel showed 100,000 players. 100,000 people were apparently located within the same general region as him. And that might only represent a fraction of the total number participating in Polar Night Wilderness Survival. Wang Yu remembered reading online that some survival games contained millions, or even tens of millions of players. The chat moved incredibly fast. Players complained about the darkness. Some questioned how Polar Night Wilderness Survival could possibly be classified as only a 1-star game. Others were frightened and already looking for a way to escape. Some tried to find experienced players willing to protect them. Others offered money in the real world in exchange for assistance. One player even announced that he belonged to a special operations organization and called for other members of his group to contact him. Everyone was trying to survive in their own way. Wang Yu watched the messages for a while before moving on. The public channel also contained a trading channel. Players could use it to exchange items with one another without paying transaction fees. That immediately caught Wang Yu's attention. Trading could become extremely useful later. He closed the public channel and opened the private channel. This section contained several practical tools: a camera, a clock, a notepad, measuring tools, a weather forecast, a contact list, and several other functions. Wang Yu checked the clock. It was 9:37 in the morning. He had already spent more than half an hour inside the game. Despite technically being morning, the world around him remained completely dark. That was polar night. Wang Yu felt a cold breeze pass through the area. He opened the weather forecast. The temperature was approximately 8 degrees Celsius. More importantly, the forecast predicted that the temperature would remain around 8 degrees for the next several days. That was good news. At least he didn't have to worry about an immediate temperature drop. Wang Yu looked down at his clothing. The clothes weren't the ones he had worn before entering the game. Like the other players, he had been provided with a simple set of long sleeves and long pants when he arrived. For now, they were enough. But Wang Yu knew this was only the beginning. He had fire, he had tools, he had storage, and now he understood how to communicate and trade with the other players. But the most important resource was still missing: water. His next move would determine where he could finally begin building
After
his shelter.
exploring the public and private channels, Wang Yu tested whether a burning branch could replace his lantern while traveling. It couldn't. The branch went out after only a few minutes. Realizing he couldn't waste time trying to conserve kerosene this way, Wang Yu packed his dry firewood into his spatial backpack, lit a lantern, and continued searching for water. For nearly half an hour he traveled through the darkness. He discovered more trees and collected additional firewood, but the small puddles and ditches he encountered weren't reliable enough for a permanent shelter. Then, Wang Yu noticed berries growing on a nearby tree. The game interface identified them as edible. Food! Relieved, Wang Yu built another small fire so he could extinguish his lantern while gathering them. He filled his tin bucket with berries and discovered several more berry trees as he traveled. Eventually, after hours of searching, the terrain suddenly sloped downward. Wang Yu followed it. Then he saw it. A stream. He laughed in relief. His most urgent survival problem had finally been solved. The stream provided plenty of water, and Wang Yu immediately began considering the surrounding area for his shelter. But he remained cautious. Water attracted animals. Holding his lantern in one hand and military shovel in the other, Wang Yu approached carefully. Small fish darted through the water and disappeared beneath rocks. Wang Yu tried catching them by hand, but quickly discovered how difficult that was without fishing equipment. Then something else caught his attention: a snail. Wang Yu picked it up. The game prompt appeared. Water snail. Edible. Wang Yu's eyes brightened. He had discovered another source of food, and this time, it was meat. If there was one snail here, there were probably more. Wang Yu immediately began searching the stream. Wang Yu crouched beside the stream and continued searching through the shallow water. Now that he knew the water snails were edible, he had no intention of leaving them behind. The lantern and nearby fire illuminated only a small section of the stream, forcing him to work slowly. Every few steps, he stopped and examined the rocks. Whenever he spotted a water snail attached to one of them, he reached down and pulled it free. One, then another, and another. The work wasn't difficult, but it was tedious. More than an hour passed before Wang Yu finally stopped. By then, he had collected 40 water snails. He looked at the small pile with satisfaction. They weren't large, but 40 of them should provide enough meat for at least a decent meal. After spending most of the morning walking through the wilderness, hunger was beginning to catch up with him. Wang Yu picked up one of the snails. He needed to figure out the easiest way to open it. Since he didn't have any specialized tools for dealing with shells, he found a suitable stone nearby and struck the snail against it. The shell cracked. But what happened next immediately caught his attention. Along with the snail meat, something else appeared. 2 small copper-colored coins. Wang Yu froze. Coins? He picked them up and examined them. They were clearly not ordinary objects from the wilderness. These were game items. Wang Yu looked at the broken shell and then back at the coins. So creatures can drop currency? That was useful information. Until now, he'd been treating the survival game mostly like an ordinary wilderness challenge. Find food, find water, create fire, build shelter, avoid predators. But the appearance of the coins reminded him that this was still a game world, and games had systems, rewards, currency, items, perhaps even things he hadn't discovered yet. Wang Yu immediately opened his personal panel. Sure enough, something had changed. A new section had appeared. Wealth. The 2 copper coins were recorded there. At the same time, another function became available. The game store. Wang Yu opened it curiously. For a moment, excitement rose in his chest. If he could buy supplies directly from the store, many of his survival problems could be solved immediately. Food, water, weapons, tools, maybe even shelter materials. Unfortunately, that hope disappeared almost as quickly as it appeared. Although the store had been unlocked, the rules of Polar Night wilderness survival prevented him from using it during this game. Wang Yu sighed. Of course it couldn't be that easy. Still, discovering the currency system was valuable. Even if the copper coins couldn't help him immediately, they might become useful later. And if one water snail gave him 2 copper coins, the other 39 should do the same. Wang Yu looked at the pile. Suddenly, opening the snails felt much more rewarding. He began cracking them one after another. Each shell produced a small amount of snail meat, and each snail gave him 2 copper coins. The pile of empty shells grew. So did his wealth. 20 coins. 40. 60. Finally, Wang Yu opened the last snail. When he finished, his personal panel showed a total of 80 copper coins. 40 water snails, 2 coins each. 80 copper coins altogether. Not bad for something he had discovered accidentally while searching for water. The snails had also provided roughly 400 grams of meat. That wasn't enough to solve his long-term food problem, but combined with the berries he'd already gathered, it was more than enough for the moment. Wang Yu decided to eat. He placed several pieces of snail meat near the fire and roasted them carefully. The smell wasn't particularly impressive, but after hours of walking, collecting wood, searching for water, and exploring the stream, Wang Yu wasn't about to complain. Food was food. He ate the cooked snail meat, along with some of the berries he'd gathered earlier. The combination was strange, but it filled his stomach. That was all that mattered. He stored the remaining snail meat in his spatial backpack. Now his situation had improved considerably. He had berries. He had meat. He had access to fresh water. He had firewood. He had 4 lanterns. And he had a way to carry everything without exhausting himself. For the first time since entering the Polar Night survival game, Wang Yu felt like he was beginning to establish some control over his situation. But there was still one major problem: shelter. He couldn't continue wandering forever. Eventually, he needed somewhere safe to sleep, store supplies, cook food, and protect himself from the wilderness. The stream made choosing a general location much easier. Water was essential, so Wang Yu wanted to remain nearby. But building directly beside the stream would be foolish. Animals would come here to drink. And the game's warning had already made it clear that predators would become increasingly dangerous as the polar night continued.
There was also another concern. Water levels could rise. Even if the stream looked calm now, Wang Yu knew nothing about the weather patterns of this world. Heavy rain upstream could cause the water to swell unexpectedly. Building too close to the stream could leave him vulnerable to flooding. So Wang Yu decided on a basic strategy. He needed high ground, somewhere elevated enough to remain safe from rising water, close enough to the stream that collecting water wouldn't become a major burden, but far enough away that animals gathering at the water source wouldn't constantly pass through his camp. With that in mind, Wang Yu packed his supplies and began searching the surrounding terrain. He moved slowly. Finding the right location mattered. A bad shelter site could cause problems for days. The lantern cast its familiar circle of light around him as he explored. Trees appeared and disappeared at the edge of the darkness. Small rocks covered sections of the ground. Occasionally, the terrain rose slightly, only to drop again. Wang Yu examined each promising location. One area was too low. Another had too many trees packed closely together. Another was covered with uneven rocks that would make constructing a shelter difficult. He continued searching. 30 minutes passed, then an hour. Still nothing. Wang Yu was beginning to understand how difficult survival became when you could only see a few meters ahead. During daylight, he could have stood on higher ground and surveyed the landscape. Here, every location had to be investigated personally. The darkness hid everything. By the time Wang Yu checked the clock again, it was already around 3 in the afternoon. He had been moving for hours. His legs were tired, his stomach was no longer empty, but his body desperately wanted rest. Wang Yu decided he'd searched enough for the moment. There was no point exhausting himself and becoming careless. He returned toward the fire near the stream. Once there, Wang Yu sat down and allowed himself to rest. The fire crackled beside him. The stream continued flowing nearby. Despite the darkness surrounding him, the location already felt strangely familiar. It wasn't home, not even close. But compared to the endless black wilderness he'd wandered through earlier, this little patch of firelight felt almost safe. Wang Yu turned his attention to the water. Finding a stream solved one problem, but he still didn't want to drink directly from it. Clear water wasn't necessarily safe water. Parasites and microorganisms couldn't be seen with the naked eye. Getting sick in the wilderness could be more dangerous than going hungry. Wang Yu needed to boil it. Unfortunately, he hadn't chosen the camping pot among his 5 starting tools. For a moment, that decision seemed inconvenient. Then he looked at his military shovel. The shovel head was metal. It wasn't designed for cooking, but that didn't mean it couldn't hold water. Wang Yu cleaned the shovel as thoroughly as possible. Then he carefully collected water and positioned it over the fire. It was an awkward solution, but it worked. Eventually, the water began to heat, then boil. Wang Yu watched the bubbles rise with satisfaction. The military shovel had already proved itself useful for cutting wood, digging, protection, and now, boiling water. Choosing it had definitely been the right decision. After allowing the water to cool, Wang Yu drank. The warm water wasn't refreshing, but it relieved his thirst. With food in his stomach and water finally available, Wang Yu relaxed beside the fire. There wasn't much else he could accomplish while exhausted, so he opened the game channel again. The chat channel was still extremely active. Messages moved across the holographic screen almost faster than he could read them. Thousands upon thousands of players were dealing with their own problems. Some were searching for water. Others were complaining about hunger. Some had already encountered animals. Others were attempting to trade supplies. There were people asking for advice, people bragging about what they had found, people panicking, and people trying to take advantage of those who were desperate. Wang Yu quietly scrolled through the messages. His own situation wasn't perfect, far from it, but compared to many of the other players, he had been extremely fortunate. He had found water, he had discovered food, he had fire, and most importantly, he possessed the mysterious dice. As long as he remained careful, his chances of surviving were far better than most. Wang Yu continued scrolling. Message after message passed in front of him. Then suddenly, his finger stopped. His eyes narrowed. Among the countless names filling the chat channel, one of them looked familiar. Wang Yu stared at the screen. He knew that name. There was actually someone he recognized inside the Polar Night Wilderness survival game.